Well, the video which you're about to see is probably one of the most important videos that I've done in a couple of years. To be frank with you, MSM is covering up a trove of murders and evidence behind it. I've got a lot to share with you. But for starters, I want to go directly to the White House, where Donald Trump brought in the leader of South Africa and showed him a trove of evidence regarding white farmers being murdered. Take a watch.
We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories. And is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would. And turn the lights down. Turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do, with or without you. People are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do.
This is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it. Both sides of the road you have crosses. Those people were all killed.
I got to tell you, I am damn proud of Donald J. Trump, who threw that evidence in the face of the South African leader there and said, hey, look, this is happening in your country. He showed him not only video evidence, but what I didn't show in that clip is he also went after news reports from his own country regarding murder cases and deaths of white farmers. He had like 5 or 6 different articles that he threw down on his desk. Now, I've got a lot more to share with you in today's broadcast. I'm going to show you some of the video footage that Trump referenced. And not only that, but I'm going to get into what the mainstream media is doing, how they're covering it up, and why. But just a quick break from my sponsor. If you're a dog owner like me, then you're already aware that, well, a dog's health can be complicated. In fact, sometimes it's hard to separate what is a healthy dog from an unhealthy dog. Well, Dr. Marty Goldstein, one of America's top holistic veterinarians, says there is one potentially dangerous substance which is found in many of your dog foods. In fact, you should stop feeding it to your dog immediately. The sad truth is that many dog food manufacturers have this substance in their dog food, and it's one of the most dangerous substances that your dog can have. And no surprise, most of the mainstream media is ignoring it. In fact, Dr. Marty, after years of research, has released an exclusive video for free to the public, by the way, and it's a video that's uninterrupted, and it showcases exactly what foods you should stop feeding your dog. And to check it out, all you have to do is go to healthydog1.com/haven. That's healthydog1.com/haven. And just by making this one change to your dog, you can help support his overall health. So check it out today. I'm a dog lover. You are not going to want to miss this one. If you want more information, click that more button if you're on your cell phone, or click the link in the description box below. So let's start first with some of the footage from South Africa showing radical left leaders there edging on entire groups of people to kill the boer, aka white farmer.
Alliance shoot to kill Hamaza, kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brrr.
DA in PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness.
Now that is some sick, disgusting stuff. I, for one, do not encourage violence of any kind. And what those people are promoting in the videos just saw are sick to the very core. But these are the very videos that Donald Trump threw in the face of the South African president. And in my opinion, rightly so, because there are some atrocities happening in that country that need some attention. And by the way, I don't care if you're white, black, Hispanic, Chinese, it doesn't matter, Muslim, Christian, whatever you are. If you're getting murdered and prosecuted in any country, attention should be brought to it. I've got so much to share with you. And the other thing that I want to tell you about is how about some of the laws that they have in South Africa? And for that, I'm going to go to this website. It's racelaw.co.za. And this is an index of legislative, what they're calling color discrimination in South Africa. Now, they actually include all of them here. They're all kind of hyperlinked and included in there. So what I've done is I threw this into Chat GTP, right? Little handy tool we have here. And I said, in this document that I've attached, can you tell me which laws support redistribution of wealth, property, and jobs? This is the South African rules, right? And they say South Africa has enacted several key laws aimed at redistributing wealth, property, and employment opportunities to redress historical inequalities. Here's one of those, and I've spoken about this in the past, the Expropriation Act of 2024. This act provides a legal framework for the compulsory acquisition of property by state for public purposes or in the public interest. Notably, it introduces provisions where nil compensation may be deemed just and equitable under certain circumstances. In other words, this law enacted in 2024 says that the government can take land from farmers and take that land without any compensation. You get nothing, nilch, because of your grandparents or your parents' history in apartheid, because you're a sibling of this, you get nothing. We're going to take it and give it to somebody else. Right? Number 2, Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act. This was done in 2003, but it establishes a legislative framework to promote Black economic empowerment, aiming to increase the participation of Black individuals in the economy. It empowers the minister to issue codes of good practice and publish transformative charters. In other words, this is just like our DEI here in America. We're going to put one color above another, call it equality, call it systematic racism or whatever, but we're going to empower Black people to get more jobs, to have more of anything, right? Which, by the way, just so you know, in South Africa, a majority, about, I think it's 84, somewhere between 83 and 90% of the population is Black. So technically, if this was America, the white, the colored, and the Asian would be the minority, but no, instead they're giving it to the majority of the people in the country. This is, in my opinion, this kind of thing promotes racism, saying, hey, we're going to empower one race over another race, but that's not the only one. It goes on, Empowerment Equity Act of 1998. This act aims to achieve equity in workplace by promoting equal opportunity and fair treatment in employment through the elimination of unfair discrimination. So they have affirmative action measures to redress disadvantages in employment experienced by certain groups. DEI all over again, but on steroids, including Black people, women, and people with disabilities. Again, a majority of the people in South Africa are Black, but they're saying, oh, they're treated unfairly, so we're going to pass this act. And then we have land reform programs. South Africa's land reform program encompasses 3 key elements: restitution, redistribution, and tenure reform. This is complete and utter socialism, taking whatever they want from certain groups of people and redistributing it to whoever they want based off of past racially discriminatory laws. Because back in the day, a very unfortunate and horrible history in South Africa, the white people took part in apartheid, but we're talking 40, 50 some odd years ago. These are the siblings of those people. They had nothing to do with it. But I went on to ask about, what about Black ownership laws, right? And here's what it says: broad-based Black economic empowerment in 2023. I think that goes along with this one right here that I've already read about. And it says mining charter requires a minimum percentage of mining rights to be owned by historically disadvantaged South Africans. So again, that's social justice. That is socialism redistributing. And then, of course, financial sector. It promotes Black ownership and participation in the financial services industry. And I asked about white ownership laws. Well, because of the after apartheid area, no specific laws for that exist. So this is what's happening in South Africa. They have far more laws, DEI, that advance one people group over another. I think, again, everything should be based off of merit, not the color of your skin. This is why I am so against these DEI things here in the United States of America, because look what these DEI policies that they started implementing back in 1990s, right? They started implementing these policies, and here they are, nearly 30, 40 years later, and we have an entire group of people, the white farmers, who are getting murdered. Right? It's not to the tune of thousands. Some of those numbers are exaggerated, but they're absolutely getting murdered, and they're getting killed, and they're getting targeted, and what's happening in that country isn't calming down. In other words, there's a real possibility that it could increase because of these DEI style laws that they have. And this is why DEI is such a big threat in America. Because it doesn't push equality, although the left claims that that's what it's doing. It pushes anything but equality. It says, oh, the white man are bad people because their great ancestors partook in slavery. Therefore, they have to answer for the crimes of their ancestors, and they should give everything, including reparations, time, job, everything, to minorities, because minorities were a victim of what your parents' did. I think we should all be judged on the actions that we do today, not be judged on what our parents did or what our parents' did. By the way, the mainstream media is out there calling all of this false. Of course, they're covering up the murders of white farmers. There's really no other way to put it because it doesn't fit their political agenda. Right here we have ABC News. Trump confronts South Africa president in Oval Office, pushes false claims of white genocide. Here we have another one. ABC News. Trump confronts South Africa's president, pushes false white genocide claims. CNN fact check. Trump's false suggestion of genocide against white farmers in South Africa. The Time. Trump pushes false white genocide claim. Intense meeting with South African leaders. Now, here's where it gets rather interesting. I'm about to show you, 10 articles. There was literally like 30 of these, but I didn't want to waste all my time. But about 10 articles of the mainstream media calling this an ambush. They got the talking points and they ran with it. You know something is fake news when the mainstream media all says literally the exact same thing. And I'm about to show you that they all are saying the exact same thing. This is why I don't think any of you should be watching mainstream media anymore. I'm just putting that out there. I'll watch it and get the information for you because they're just liars, and they all have a talking point. Somebody, Lord only knows who, gave them the talking point and they ran with it. They all literally say the same thing. And here's what they're saying about the Trump meeting that you saw in the beginning of this video with the South African president. Here we go. Sky News. Donald Trump ambushes South African president at White House meeting by playing video alleged genocide. I want you to pay attention to this word, ambush, because this is the one that they used in every single article. Let's go to Axios. Trump ambushes South Africa's president with footage of Oval Office. CNN. White House orchestrated Trump's Oval Office ambush of South African president. The Hill. Trump confronts South Africa leader with false claims of genocide in Oval Office ambush. BBC. Trump ambushes ambushes South Africa president in Oval Office with claims of white prosecution. Then we have the Straight Time. Trump's ambushes South Africa president over genocide accusation. Trump ambushes South Africa president with claims of white genocide. And then we also have Trump ambushes South Africa leader over evidence of blah, 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 blah. It's starting to all merge together. But what I find interesting is I went to the New York Times, right? I actually had to go way back machine because they changed the title. Here's New York Times, and you can see I had to way back machine it because, you know, they didn't want to have the label of being classified an ambush with everybody else. But here we have New York Times. Trump lectures South African president in televised Oval Office ambush. That's the New York Times. So don't worry, they changed the title. Here's their new title, and you could see they changed the word ambush. Everything else is the same to confrontation. Why? Because they got busted. They literally got busted. Tell me the mainstream media is not, bought and paid for. Well, they are, obviously. This is why people shouldn't have anything to do. And the sad truth is a lot of people still watch them and actually believe what they're saying. Now, I love Western Lensman. He put together this compilation of all of these mainstream media outlets. You can see some of the famous people, not so famous, but in this clip, he shows them all saying ambush, 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 ambush. I'll play a short clip, but I can't because of copyright reasons. I want to encourage you guys to check it out.
In the Oval Office today, the tense confrontation, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
Next, another Oval Office meltdown, President Trump ambushing...
Ambush, ambush, ambush. But he plays this whole video compilation. I encourage you to watch it. He does a good job with it, but they're all out there saying ambush. And you can see that by the 10 or so articles that I just showed you. I mean, this is some pretty insane stuff that is happening right now. And the fact that the mainstream media is complicit about it is just insane. Now, here's the deal. Why? Why would the mainstream media not want to talk about it? Why would they claim it's fake news? Why would they all say Trump is ambushing the president while pretending like, the murders of farmers isn't happening? Why would they do that? Well, number one, we all know one main reason comes to the top of all of our heads. Well, they're white. And you can't have somebody who in America, they're trying to paint the white people as the people who are subjugating others to stuff while painting the minorities as the victims. Well, if the narrative switches and the white people become the victims and say the minorities become the aggressors, well, that doesn't fit their narrative so much. So they are in a downright panic over all of this. Now, South Africa's president and leadership are out there denying that any of this is happening. And the truth of the matter is, things are getting worse in South Africa. And they're not getting better. And there's actually talk within their own leadership of basically labeling people who leave the country as some kind of traitors, and they're contemplating, they haven't passed any legislation yet, but contemplating saying, what do we do to these people who are leaving? Because the South African government is worried sick that a bunch of white farmers are going to leave. Well, if white farmers continue to leave the country, right, they're going to lose one of their most valuable assets, food. And they know that. The South African government wants these people to stick around. Why? Well, because they want to slowly take over their land and take over their possessions because they know they're valuable because of what they produce, right? But there's so much more. I found a lot of that on this article here. It's actually a really good article on altmarket.us. And here's the headline here. Leftist plantation. It's now treason for white farmers to leave South Africa. This was by Brandon Smith. But he goes on to state this, right? There's a lot of fundamental evils of the political left and socialism. This is exactly what is going on in South Africa. There is political left, and what's going on is socialism. But he states, South Africa represents a perfect petri dish, a window into the minds of progressive authoritarians. The country is near the endpoint of natural socialist evolution, from hopeful humanist endeavor to the communist slave plantation that all socialist adventures inevitably become. And that is what socialism drives and strives for. It's slavery It's a slavery plantation, no matter the color of your skin, right? We will all be part of that slavery. A key pillar of the leftist authoritarianism is the obsessive desire to prevent people from waking up. He says walking up. I'm assuming he meant waking up. In other words, citizens are seen as property of the collective and property of the greater progressive experiment. When citizens try to leave, this is treated as a crime beyond reckoning. How dare you leave our country? White farmers, you're ours. You belong to us. And this is why people in the country, including government officials there in the country, are having an issue with it. Afrikaners that want to immigrate to the U.S. under the refugee program put in place by the Trump administration are being targeted by a malicious smear campaign. Recently, the South African parliament debated what should be done about these immigrants and also debated how to protect SA's image on the world stage. Their native was broad, but it basically asserts that Afrikaners that talk openly about racial discrimination and race-motivated murders of whites might be investigated under treason laws. By extension, Afrikaner refugees seeking to leave SA could be designated as threats to national security. Anyone warning about the growing movement for racial genocide of Afrikaners is a potential traitor and a threat to the country. And they actually talk about it in this video that you see right here, and I'll leave a link to this article, but it's actually at about 119. 119. This is one of the ladies, I believe, that traveled with the president here to America. But anyway, at about 118, 119, that's what they're literally discussing at the parliament. It goes on to say a member and candidate of the ruling party, the ANC, wrote this week in the African Times, and you can pull up the African Times, but here's what was written. Let us not sugarcoat this. When South Africans, whether political parties or private citizens, go to the USA to solicit intervention or publicly declare persecution, they commit an act tantamount to treason. They bring shame not only to the Republic, but spit in the face of those who died so they could vote. Where is the legal courage to prosecute this betrayal? The Intelligence Service Act, RICA, and Foreign Interference Bill must be invoked to investigate external political influence masquerading as refugee claims and foreign investment pressure. This is all detailed in this article, The African Times. And it's all there. And you can see the article writer, the date that it was written. But these are things that they are actually questioning, right? But it goes on. This is basically the underlining hypocrisy of race communists. The political left wants revenge for apartheid against people that had nothing to do with apartheid. And ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? But at the same time, leftists also assert that white farmers that abandon their land and leave for the U.S. are traitors. The Afrikaners are trapped, and that's just the way that the leftists like it. Now, why? Well, that same article says what he believes. Why? And I agree with him wholeheartedly. He said the treason that it's talking about, basically, it says, if a handful of Afrikaners are able to leave and come to the U.S. and succeed, this will encourage thousands more to leave South Africa. The country will then lose a large portion of its most productive citizens. The last vestiges of civil stability will disappear, and South Africa will collapse. This is why some officials are begging the Afrikaners to stay. This is why the government is talking about a national security concern over 59 immigrants leaving for America. Secretly, they know that an eventual mass exodus of white farmers is coming, and it is going to crush their fraudulent system. In other words, they don't want these farmers leaving now. They want to slowly take away their land and give it away to others. Not do it all at once, because it's going to collapse society in South Africa. So now they're panicking, claiming a national security concern. Some of them are, not all of them. Over 59? Why? Because more could come. Maybe you should backtrack on some of these rules that you have in South Africa that can take land without compensation. And hey, some of your leaders within parliament calling for their death, maybe you should stop that and put an end to it, right? Anyway, I'm all for fair treatment of everyone, no matter of the color of their skin. And I don't feel like the white farmers are getting that in South Africa. Anyhow, I know I went a little longer today. As a quick reminder, please get to restrictedrepublic.com. I can't tell you, I publish so much stuff on that website, and you guys only get a small tidbit of it here on YouTube. But if you get to restrictedrepublic.com, use the coupon code FOREVER50. You're going to get it for $50 per month. And that's a pretty good deal. I think it's like $4.16 per day. But get to restrictedrepublic.com and check it out today and make sure you use that coupon code. I've got exclusive content on there, and all of the information I have on there is free of commercials. Anyhow, I love you all. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.